My fiancée got pregnant by my brother, and my mother was happy because she was going to be a grandmother. But 5 years later, she called me crying to ask for a favor. 5 years ago, just a month before I turned 30, I found out that my fiancée had been having an affair with my brother. The only reason they even confessed it to me was because she was pregnant and wanted to keep the baby. My ex-fiancée, Karen, 30 years old, and my brother Chris, 33, had apparently been sleeping together ever since Karen and I got engaged. Karen and I had been together since our senior year of high school and continued through college, so getting engaged seemed like the natural next step after being together for so long. However, shortly after we got engaged, my brother confessed to her that he had always had feelings for her and needed to tell her before she got married, since after that, he would never be able to say anything. After that, she suddenly realized that she also had feelings for him. Apparently, she had even flirted with him behind my back during family events and things like that. But she wasn't sure about him, which is why she stayed with me. I found all this out 5 years ago, just a few months before our wedding, when they both sat me down with my parents and told me they were planning to be together, and that Karen couldn't marry me anymore because she was in love with Chris and they were expecting a baby. That day, I was disgusted and could hardly believe it. I told Karen that I wanted her to come back to me and end whatever was going on with Chris. But my mother made it clear that none of that was going to happen, and that Chris and Karen were going to be together, and I had to accept it because it was their decision. I couldn't even believe my mother was supporting this. At least my father had the decency to look embarrassed and try to comfort me, but my mother was shamelessly supporting it, even telling me that if I had a problem with it, I should keep it to myself because Karen was pregnant and I had no right to bother her when she was in such a delicate condition. My mother was crazy about finally having a grandchild in the family, so she barely cared about what I was going through. She even fought with me to justify what was happening. After that confrontation, Karen moved in with my family because her own parents no longer wanted to speak to her after she told them the truth. Of course, we had to cancel the wedding, and my parents covered the costs, so I didn't have to worry about any of that. However, I was kicked out of the family because I refused to speak to them, and for the last 5 years, we had no contact whatsoever. The only person who even tried to reach out to me was my father, but I didn't even bother talking to him. So, there has been complete silence from their side ever since I cut ties with them. It took me a long time to get over what happened, because Karen and I had been together for so long. I really loved her, so it took a lot of therapy to get past it, and even now I wouldn't say I've completely moved on, but I'm coping with it. The rest of the family kept in touch with me, though, and I learned from them that she had a child with my brother. Just a month after giving birth, a paternity test confirmed that the baby was indeed my brother's and not mine, so there was no need to contact me after that. They ended up getting married and have been together for the last 5 years. I assumed everything was going well for them, but about a week ago, my mother suddenly called me, which took me by surprise because she was the one who had supported Karen and Chris so much, almost to an unhealthy level. So, out of curiosity, I decided to call her back after she emailed me saying she needed to talk urgently. When I called her, she gave me some pretty bad news while crying. I found out that my brother had been in a very serious accident, a hit and run, and unfortunately, due to the impact, he fell into a coma, and there was no way of knowing how long it would take for him to recover. This happened last week, and just 3 days later, the doctors said things were very critical. That's when my mother decided to call me and tell me about it. At first, I thought she was going to ask me to visit him and be there for the family, which I would have been willing to do because, despite everything, I think this is a very important situation, and it would have been a reasonable expectation for me. I didn't want to turn my back on someone in such a terrible condition. But then my mother completely changed the subject and said that she wanted me to be there for Karen and my nephew. I didn't even understand what that meant, and then she told me that now, since Chris was basically no longer there, I had to take his place with them. When I asked her to elaborate, she said that now that Chris was basically out of the picture, I should be there for Karen and her son in every way. It wasn't just about financial support. She really expected me to take charge and live with them so I could take care of them. She said she would have taken them in herself, but she wasn't getting any younger, and it would be too much work to care for all of them. So, that's why my mother called me, to inform me and to hope I'd make a decision during the call because time was running out. Honestly, I lost my patience because she hadn't spoken to me in 5 years, and now that she was finally talking to me, she expected me to do something so big. I could understand that Karen and her son were completely alone right now and needed someone there for them, but that someone should have been a member of her immediate family, not me, the person she had betrayed and never even bothered to apologize to. So, I immediately told my mother that I wasn't going to do anything like that, and that it was ridiculous to expect me to agree to that. She started arguing with me on the phone, and I didn't have time to waste. I was already very angry and didn't want to ruin my mood further, so I just hung up and blocked her. I tried to move on with my day as usual after that, but I couldn't stop thinking about what Chris and Karen were going through, and I genuinely felt bad for them. However, I wasn't going to do what my mother asked and take my brother's place in their family, because that was just weird. Chris was still around, but it wasn't as if he'd passed away, and my mother was acting as though he was already gone. Later that day, I decided to call my father instead, thinking it would be more reasonable to speak with him. It was awkward talking to him after 5 years of no contact, but after some small talk, I asked how Chris was doing. He told me things didn't look very good at the moment. I then shared the conversation I had with my mother earlier in the day, hoping that my father would provide a more reasonable perspective. Instead, he said my mother was right to expect that of me. I was really shocked because my dad used to be the most sensible one of my parents, and now even he was saying such strange things. When I asked him if he really meant that, he said yes. He said Karen and I had history, and that I was still part of the family, no matter what had happened over the last 5 years. Ultimately, I was family, and if anyone could help the family, it should be me. He said my mother's expectations weren't exactly unreasonable. That really threw me off. Honestly, I have no idea what to do. For the past week, I've been avoiding speaking to anyone in my family, even other relatives, because I'm afraid that someone will mention this and I'll be forced to explain my decisions. I also feel like the bad guy here because I'm refusing to help my family, and I know they really need me, at least emotionally, if not financially. I honestly don't know what to do. I know what my mother is asking is really strange and unreasonable, but at the same time, I feel bad for flat-out rejecting her. I haven't even gone to the hospital to visit my brother because I feel so weird about the whole situation. I also haven't been able to talk to any of my friends about this, since it's so personal. They know how things have been between my family and me ever since the wedding was canceled, but this feels a little stranger than that. Honestly, that's why I'm posting this here on Reddit. I really need some opinions on what I should do, because both my friends and my family are going to have some sort of biased opinion. I really need advice because I think I'm going to lose my mind if I don't find an acceptable solution to all this soon. Honestly, I feel like I'm going back to that phase of my life when I was constantly thinking about Karen and Chris right after I found out she had been cheating on me. That was a really dark time, and I don't want to go back there because it took so much for me to get out of that. So please, anyone who has something to say, no matter how harsh the opinion might be, please just tell me, so I can at least distract myself. So, am I the bad guy for refusing to go see my family and help them after my brother had an accident? Update 1. Hey guys, so I've decided not to go see my family for the time being. It's just too much for me right now. I didn't even realize how bad my anxiety had gotten in the past week just from the things my parents were saying. But now, I'm back on my anxiety meds and trying to deal with everything. A lot of people have shown me love and support in the comments of my original post, and some have even reached out to me personally in my DMs to let me know they're there for me and that I'm not alone, which I really appreciate. Thank you so much for that. I've also talked to a couple of my close friends and confided in them about what's been happening, because I honestly don't think I can deal with all of this alone. They've told me that my decision not to go see them right now is the right one because it's the best decision for me, and I need to put myself first no matter what's going on in other people's lives. So far, Chris and my family have always put themselves first. So, I should do the same. To be honest, I don't really think I need to be there for them emotionally either. They have each other. They can deal with this on their own. I was the only one who didn't have any immediate family there for me after the wedding was canceled, and discovering I'd been betrayed by my own parents, who turned on me and chose my brother over me, even though he was the one who was in the wrong and should have been the one kicked out of the family. But anyway, all that's in the past, and I'm trying to move on. I won't be able to do that successfully if I go back to them again. So, I've blocked everyone once again, and I'm going to stick to my decision to have no contact with them. I really do feel bad for what happened to my brother, and I genuinely hope he recovers soon, because no matter what he has done, I can't be the kind of person who wishes something bad happens to anyone. I just hope things work out for them, but I'm leaving this situation. I'm focusing on my own mental health now, and I'm considering going back to therapy because of how I've handled this, and how the things my parents said have affected me. I really feel I need to talk to a professional, because I don't think I'm handling this as well as I thought I was. All those old feelings are surfacing again, so I'm just going to take care of myself for now. Update 2. I heard from a few relatives that my brother's condition is still quite critical and there's no sign of improvement. It's been almost 2 weeks and he's still in the hospital. Things are really bad for the family, and I feel sad for them, but there's not much I can do. Everyone who knows my family has visited my brother at least once in the last 2 weeks and has offered their condolences for the terrible accident, except for me. I would have gone, but I also found out from my relatives that my parents have been bad-mouthing me to anyone who has visited, painting me as the villain. Apparently, they've been telling everyone that they asked me to come visit and be there for the family, but I refused. They've even accused me of saying things like, this was karma for what happened to me 5 years ago, and that my brother deserved it. To set the record straight, I obviously didn't say anything like that. Some relatives reached out to confirm if it was true, because it didn't sound like something I'd say, since I'm generally kind to everyone. When they asked, I told them I hadn't said those things, and that my parents were making things up to paint me as a terrible person, probably to get some reaction from me or something, because that's just how my parents are. I was really disappointed that they were saying such things about me and making up stories just to make me look bad, especially after they've already ruined my life once. I'm lucky that my relatives asked me about it, because if they had chosen to believe my parents, I don't think anyone in the family would be talking to me right now. I hadn't spoken to my parents for the past 5 years, but the rest of my family, my uncles, aunts, and of course my cousins, have always been there for me. I didn't want to lose that, and I guess my parents couldn't stand it, so they decided to try and ruin that for me as well. I just don't understand why they hate me so much. I've literally never done anything to them. My brother and I were never particularly close, and my parents have always had a special place for him since childhood. But this all feels unnecessary and excessive. Update 3. So, I posted an update 2 days ago, and today my mom decided to contact me again. I had blocked her everywhere, so she had no other choice but to come see me to talk. When I got home from work, she was already there waiting for me. Honestly, I didn't even want to talk to her because I was already exhausted from work. I almost decided to get back in my car, but then she saw me, so I had to go speak with her. I had no intention of letting her into my house because that would have made it hard to get rid of her, so I decided to talk to her in the front yard. This turned out to be pretty bad for me because, in the end, she started yelling at me, which also attracted the attention of the neighbors. The conversation started normally. She made some small talk with me, and I had to respond politely, but then I couldn't avoid it and ended up asking her why she had been making up things about me just to paint me as the bad guy. I told her it wasn't fair to me because I had never wished anything bad for my family, even after they treated me this way, and honestly, I just wanted to move on with my life. But they were making it really difficult. I had been holding these feelings in for a long time, so when I saw her, it just all came out, and I couldn't help it. In the end, I just told her that after everything that had happened, it was really hard for me to think of them as family, and I was very disappointed by their behavior. Whatever she had come to talk to me about could be done later because I had just gotten home from work, and I really wasn't in the mood to fight or talk to anyone about anything emotionally draining. She had been listening to me calmly up until that point, but when I told her I didn't want to talk to her at that moment, she got very angry and said she was only there to apologize for the things I had mentioned. She said that she and my dad had been thinking it over. They were both pretty upset by my initial response because I had refused to step up for the family, even visiting my brother in the hospital while he was there. But later they realized that they hadn't treated me all that well over the past 5 years, and that obviously I was still very upset about that. That's why I wasn't visiting. She came here to talk to me and try to resolve things between us because she felt that, at this point, the family should stay united for the sake of emotional stability. However, after I told her that I didn't want to talk at that moment, she changed her mind and decided to yell at me instead. She told me that I should apparently be grateful to still have a family because after my reaction when I heard about my brother's accident, she was thinking of cutting me off and making sure the rest of the relatives stopped talking to me permanently. I didn't understand what she was talking about, so she explained that she believed my reaction wasn't sad enough when I found out about the accident. I didn't even know what she expected me to do. She said she thought that when they told me about the accident, she at least expected me to show some emotion, but I just sounded so indifferent on the phone. Obviously, no matter how our personal relationship was, a piece of news like that would definitely affect me, and it did. As I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, including my family, despite our issues. So, I was definitely upset when I found out about the accident. Maybe that didn't come through in the phone call because she couldn't see my face, but her reasons were completely unfounded and illogical. She even went as far as to say that the fact that I wasn't there for Karen and my nephew and didn't step up for them instead of my brother just showed how little I cared about the family. She was just making things up to justify how they were acting. Honestly, I think my parents are starting to lose their minds because these things are so bizarre and unnecessary. Anyway, after she started yelling at me, I lost even more interest in talking to her and just decided to go inside my house and tell her to leave. So after a while, I unlocked the door and went in while she kept yelling at me. She tried to follow me inside, but I slammed the door in her face and told her to go because I was seriously angry and didn't want to interact with her anymore. She argued with me, but I told her I would call the police, and that's when she finally left, though not without cursing me out and saying that I would face the consequences of this soon. I don't know what that means, nor am I interested in finding out. I just want to relax and move on with my life. Update 4. It's been 26 days since the accident. My family finally had some good news to share with everyone today. Obviously, they didn't tell me personally. I found out through my cousins. The good news is that my brother is finally showing signs of improvement. He's no longer in a coma and is responding better, which is a good sign. I really hope he can pull through and just keep getting better from here because the past month has been incredibly stressful for the whole family, even for me, even though I'm no longer part of the family and was shut out a long time ago. But the way my parents have been treating me over the past 26 days really shows that they're off balance. I think they were just taking their frustration out on me. After my last interaction with my mom, which I mentioned in my previous update, I didn't hear from her for a couple of days, but then my dad called me to scold me. He used a different number than usual, so I didn't recognize it right away. When I answered, he immediately started yelling at me, not giving me a chance to hang up before I realized it was him. He was very clever about it, trying to catch me off guard so he could yell at me, instead of calling me at any normal time during the day. He chose to call me at 5 in the morning, knowing I'd be asleep and have to wake up to answer the phone, making me groggy and confused. So, a couple of days after my interaction with my mom, my dad called me at 5 in the morning, and after nearly 3 calls, I finally answered the 4th one. He immediately started yelling at me for being ungrateful, saying he wished I'd never been born. He said he'd make sure the rest of the family would never talk to me again because I was such a terrible person for not even bothering to visit my brother in the hospital when he was suffering so much and for not being there for the family. After ranting for almost 5 minutes, He hung up on me because I was still trying to process everything that was happening. By the time I was ready to respond, he had already hung up the phone and blocked me. At the time, it wasn't very fun, but now I think it's pretty funny because my parents are so desperate to make me look like the bad guy and yell at me over arbitrary things that they're willing to go to such extremes just to justify their behavior. Like I've said before, I think they were just venting their frustration on me, and as usual, I was supposed to be there for the family. But it's fine, because my dad didn't succeed in turning the rest of the family against me. They know I'm not at fault, and also know what happened 5 years ago. Anyway, now that my brother's condition is improving, I just hope they leave me alone and focus on him. Update 5. It's really strange coming back here after almost 3 years. So much has happened since then, and mostly for the better. I now live in Germany for work. I've been here for the past year and a half. I also started dating someone, and my girlfriend and I have been together for the last 8 months, and it's been really good. In the last 3 years, I've had absolutely no contact with my family, and that's been a blessing, to be honest. I've kept in touch with my relatives, who were kind to me, so that's different. My brother is completely fine now. He survived the accident, and although it took him a long time to get back to normal, he's fine now. Karen reached out to me after my brother started recovering to talk and apologize for everything that happened in the past. I just told her that, at this point, an apology wasn't necessary. She came to see me after everyone found out I was moving to Germany. She visited to apologize on behalf of her and my brother. My brother couldn't come to see me because he was too embarrassed about everything that happened 8 years ago. But honestly, none of that matters anymore. So, I just told her I forgave her. I didn't even care. And that part was true. I really didn't care because I'm moving forward with my life towards better things. Since then, I've been here, and my parents no longer talk to me, and I'm genuinely happy about that because I wouldn't let that situation happen again under any circumstances. Finally, I'm happy now. Anyway, now that everyone's caught up, I'm going back to my life. A big thank you to everyone who showed me love and concern when I was posting here and kept checking on me in the comments even after I stopped posting. Update 6. Just updating because some people wanted to know more about my life. I'm living in Germany now. I was offered a job here, and I accepted it because I needed a change of scenery. No doubt it's been great for me. And like I said, I met someone, so it turned out to be a good decision. I forgot to mention, but my brother found out that when he was in a coma, my parents offered me to replace him, so the relationship between my brother and them is tense, to say the least. Karen told me my brother isn't letting them see their grandson right now. She also said she had no idea about the offer, but that's all.